I found out my son got married on a Tuesday night, not from a phone call, not from a text, from Instagram. His caption said he was finally with people who never doubted him. I was sitting 4 miles away holding a photo of his mother. My name is Leonard Voss. People call me Leo. I'm 67 years old, retired contractor, Philadelphia. I built houses for 40 years, poured foundations, framed walls, laid floors. I know what solid looks like, and I know when something is about to give. That Tuesday night, I was in my kitchen the same way I am most nights. Cup of coffee going cold on the table, phone in my hand, looking at a picture of Harriet. She passed 4 years ago, ovarian cancer, fast and quiet, same way she lived. Every night I still reach for her somehow. Cecil's Instagram story popped up at the top of the feed, my son, 33 years old. I almost kept scrolling. I'm glad I did not. It was a photo. Cecil in a dark suit standing next to a woman in a white dress. Nadine, he had mentioned her a few times over the past year, just a friend, Dad. It is getting serious, Dad. I had not met her yet. I figured he would bring her by on a Sunday eventually. That was how we did things when Harriet was alive. But this was not a Sunday dinner photo. The caption read, "Blessed to finally be with people who never doubted me." He was standing next to Nadine's mother, Loretta Harlow. Big smile on both of them. Loretta's arm around my son like she had raised him herself. I set the phone face down on the table. I did not yell. I did not call him. I sat in that kitchen and I let it land. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside. I looked at Harriet's picture on the shelf across the room. She was smiling in it the way she always smiled, like she already knew how things were going to turn out. Cecil was wearing a tie in that photo. Dark blue, small check pattern. I recognized it before I recognized anything else. I gave him that tie the morning he graduated from Penn State. Stood in the parking lot of the arena and fixed it around his neck myself because he never could get the knot right. Harriet took a picture. I still have it somewhere. He wore that tie to his wedding and he did not tell me about it. I sat at that table for a long time. I'm not a man who cries easily. I did not cry that night either. What I felt was something colder than that. Something that settled in slow and stayed. By the time I went to bed, I had already made some decisions. The next morning, I drove to the coffee shop on the corner. Otis, who owns the place, nodded at me when I walked in, set my cup down without me asking. That is the kind of neighborhood Kensington is. People know you. People leave you alone when you need it. I sat at my usual table by the window, and I pulled up the Philadelphia County Public Records portal on my phone. I have used it plenty of times over the years for property work. I typed in Cecil's full name. The marriage certificate came back in under a minute, filed 6 days ago. Nathaniel Cecil Voss and Nadine Harlow, official, done. So it was real. Then I pulled up the property records for the row house on Clement Street in South Philly. The house I spent 3 years renovating after Harriet passed. When she got sick, I had already been planning to buy that property as a rental. After she died, I started working on it instead of sitting in our house going out of my mind with quiet. I rebuilt that kitchen from the studs. I replaced every window. I built the deck out back by hand, the one where Harriet had planted a small apple tree in the spring before she got her diagnosis. I gave Cecil the keys 2 years ago, told him he could live there as long as he needed to get on his feet, told him to treat it right. The property record showed exactly what I knew it would show. Owner, Voss Properties LLC. My LLC. Cecil's name was not on the deed. Not anywhere. He had been telling people he owned that house. I had heard him on the phone once. Yeah, I'm over in South Philly, got a place down there. He let people believe what they wanted to believe. I let him have that. I thought it helped him feel like he was standing on his own. I finished my coffee, paid Otis, walked home. That afternoon, I got on my laptop and pulled up the email account I had kept linked to Cecil's emergency contact information since he was in college. Old habit. There was a notification I had not seen before. A lending platform, a loan confirmation, $15,000, co-signed by Nathaniel Cecil Voss against the Clement Street address. Against my property, I read it twice. Then I picked up my phone and called Wendell Carr. Wendell Carr has been my attorney for 28 years. He handled Harriet's estate. He set up the LLC. He was sitting with me at the kitchen table the night we structured her will, and he had tears in his own eyes. He is not just my lawyer. He is one of the few people who knows the full picture of what I have and how it is put together. He picked up on the second ring. Leo, everything. All right? No. I said, but I need you to listen before you say anything. I told him about the Instagram post. I told him about the marriage certificate. Then I told him about the loan. He was quiet for a moment. She used the Clement Street address as proof of residence. That is what the document shows, and Cecil co-signed. His name is on it. Whether he knew about it, I do not know yet. Wendell let out a long breath. You want to move on the property. I want to do it right. I said. Give me one more day. I did not sleep well that second night either. I sat in the armchair in the living room, the one Harriet used to read in, and I looked at her picture for a long time. I thought about the year she got sick. How she kept working our books from the hospital bed on a laptop I had set up on a rolling tray. How she made me promise not to just hand everything to Cecil. Not yet. He has not earned it yet, Leo, she said. Make him earn it. I told her I would. I meant it. I thought about all the times I had kept that promise quietly. Cecile's last credit card mess 2 years before he met Nadine. He was $9,000 in the hole and too proud to ask me directly, so he told me it was a loan he needed, that he would pay it back. I wired the money that same day. Did not ask for it back, did not mention it again. I thought about the car he drove now, the one he told his friends he leased. I had bought it outright as a graduation gift. I thought about the 4 years of tuition at Penn State that I paid in full every semester so he would not carry debt into his adult life. None of that was in his Instagram caption. The next morning I bought a card at the pharmacy 2 blocks from my house. Plain white envelope. Congratulations printed on the front. I wrote nothing inside, just signed my name, Leo. Mailed it to the Clement Street address. 2 days later my phone rang. Cecil. His voice was careful. Too careful. Dad, how did you find out? I saw the pictures. I said, you looked happy. Silence on his end. I was going to tell you, he started. I know, I said. I kept my voice flat even. We should talk. Bring Nadine. Bring her mother if she wants to come. Wendell's office. Thursday at 10. Wendell, why do we need a lawyer there? I'm getting older, I told him. I do not always understand these papers on my own. I just want to make sure I do everything right. He hesitated. Then he said they would be there. I spent Wednesday evening in Wendell's conference room going through everything. The LLC documents, the loan record printed out and signed by Wendell, a color printout of the Instagram post, and the sales agreement already signed for the Clement Street property. I had reached out to a developer named Dennis who had been trying to buy that entire block on Clement Street for over a year. He wanted the land. He did not care about the house. I called him Monday afternoon and told him I was ready. Cash deal. $405,000. He had his people draw up the paperwork overnight. I signed it Wednesday morning. The title transferred before noon. Before I left Wendell's office Wednesday night, I stood in the hallway for a minute. I looked at my watch. Harriet gave it to me on our 30th anniversary. Simple face, worn leather strap. Nothing fancy. She said she wanted me to have something that reminded me every day that time is the only thing you cannot get back. I had not worn it much since she passed. I put it on that morning and had not taken it off. Thursday, I woke up early, put on a clean collared shirt and my good sport coat, made coffee, stood at the kitchen window for a while looking out at the street. I thought about what I was about to do. I did not feel good about it. I want to be honest about that. There was no satisfaction in it yet. There was just a cold, settled kind of clarity. The kind that comes when you have already made your decision and you know it is the right one even though it costs something. I drove myself downtown, took the elevator to the 12th floor. Wendell met me at the door to the conference room. They are already inside, he said quietly. All of them? All of them. The mother sat down at the head of the table. I nodded, I straightened my jacket. I opened the door and walked in. Cecile was sitting at the far end of the table next to Nadine. He looked up when I walked in and his face went through about 4 expressions in 2 seconds. Relief, guilt, confusion, and something else I could not name. He was wearing a blue tie, small check pattern. I recognized it before I recognized anything else about him. Loretta Harlow was at the head of the table, dressed sharp, hair perfect, reading glasses on. She looked like a woman who had run meetings her whole life and expected to run this one too. She owned a chain of salons around the city. I had done some research before Thursday. She was used to being the most prepared person in any room she walked into. She stood up when I came in and put her hand out. Leonard, finally, I have heard so much about you. Loretta, I said. I shook her hand and sat down across from Cecil. She did not wait long. I think we all know why we are here. There has been some confusion about the house. Cecil and Nadine are just starting their lives together. They need stability. I'm sure we can work this out like reasonable people. She smiled at me, patient, controlled. I appreciate that, I said. I looked at Wendell. Wendell opened the folder and slid a copy of the LLC deed across the table. The property at Clement Street, he said, is an asset wholly owned by Voss Properties, LLC. Cecile's name does not appear on the deed, the title, or any ownership document. He was granted residential use of the property at the sole discretion of the LLC's owner, Leonard Voss. Loretta picked up the document. She read it. Her jaw tightened just slightly. That is a technicality. Leo gave him the house. A court would look at intent of gift and rule accordingly. He gave him the keys, Wendell said, not the deed. There is a significant legal difference, and I'm happy to walk you through the case law if that would help. Loretta set the paper down. She was recalculating. I could see it. Then Wendell pulled out the second document, the loan record. He slid it directly in front of Cecil. Cecil looked down at it. His face went white. "This is a personal loan," Wendell said. "Co-signed in Cecil's name, secured against the Clement Street address, the address of the LLC property." He looked at Cecil directly. "Were you aware of this loan?" Cecil turned to Nadine. "What is this?" Nadine looked at the table. "Nadine," Cecil said again, quiet, flat. "It was temporary," she said. "I was going to pay it back before anyone needed to know. You used my name," Cecil said. Loretta put her hand on Nadine's arm. "This is a private matter between them. It does not need to be part of this conversation." "It became part of this conversation," I said, "the moment it involved my property." That was the first time Loretta Harlow had nothing to say back. "I looked at my son. She borrowed $15,000 in your name, Cecil, against a house that has never belonged to you." He stared at the paper. He did not look up. I let it sit. I did not push. I just let him read it and feel what he was going to feel. Then Loretta shifted. She reached into her bag and pulled out a checkbook. I had been expecting this. She set it on the table and uncapped a pen like she was doing us a favor. "All right," she said, her voice returning to that smooth, reasonable tone. "This is more complicated than we realized. Leo, let us make it simple. We will buy the property from you directly. $380,000, fair price, fast, close. Nadine and Cecil get the deed put in their names properly. Everyone moves on with their lives." She held the pen ready. I looked at her. I looked at the checkbook. Then I looked at Wendell. "The property sold yesterday morning," I said. $405,000 cash to a developer. Title transferred before noon. The room went silent. Nadine made a sound like the air had gone out of her. "You what?" Loretta said. Not a question. Just the words. "The sale is done," Wendell confirmed, checking his notes. "The developer plans to break ground within 30 days. They are clearing the lot." Cecil put both hands flat on the table and stared at them. "The apple tree," he said, almost to himself, barely above a whisper. I looked at him. He was not talking to anyone in the room. He was somewhere else entirely. That landed on me harder than anything else that morning. Harriet had planted that tree the spring before her diagnosis. Cecil was maybe 27 or 28 when she put it in. He used to bring grocery bags over on weekends, and she would send him home with apples. He had not been back to that house much once Nadine came into the picture. I do not think he had thought about that tree in a long time, but he thought about it now. Loretta recovered faster than the others. She was that kind of woman. She straightened up and looked at me with something cold in her eyes. "You did all of this before we even had a chance to talk. That is not a man looking for resolution. That is a man looking to punish his own son." I looked at her calmly. "I am a man who protected what belongs to him. That is all." Loretta was not done. She was the kind of woman who always had another angle ready. She looked around the conference room, at the view through the windows, at Wendell's bookshelves, at my watch on the table. She was adding things up, adjusting her picture of who she thought I was. She tried a different approach, softer this time. "Leo, I understand you're hurt. Cecile should have told you about the wedding. That was wrong. But you are his father. You do not blow up your son's life over a caption on a phone. He did not just post a caption," I said. "He stood in front of the world and told everyone that the people who supported him were strangers. While living in a house I built with my own hands. While driving a car I bought him. While carrying a degree I paid for." Loretta opened her mouth. I kept going. "Penn State, 4 years. Paid in full every semester so he would not start his adult life buried in debt. That was Harriet's idea. She worked extra clients for 3 years straight to make sure that money was set aside. Cecile was 18 years old and never had to worry about it for one single day." The room was quiet. 2 years ago, he called me. He had run up $9,000 on credit cards. Too embarrassed to ask directly, so he called it a short-term loan. I wired the money that same afternoon, did not ask for it back, did not bring it up again. Cecil was staring at the table. "The car he drove here today, he tells people he leases it. I bought it outright as a graduation gift. Harriet and I kept driving our old truck for 2 more years so he could have something reliable. I was not raising my voice. I did not need to. The room was quiet enough that everything I said had weight behind it. I'm not saying this to embarrass him, I said. I'm saying it because his caption said he finally found people who supported him, and I need everyone in this room to understand what that word actually means. Loretta set her pen down. For the first time since I walked in, she did not look like the most prepared person in the room. Nadine had not spoken since Cecil confronted her about the loan. She was sitting still with her hands in her lap, looking at a fixed point on the table in front of her. Cecil finally looked up. His face was not angry anymore. It was something worse than anger. He looked like a man who had just heard something he already knew but had spent a long time working hard not to think about. "I just wanted them to think I had it together," he said. His voice was quiet. "When I met Nadine, her family had everything looking right. Nice house, nice cars, everything organized and put together. I wanted to fit in with that. I wanted them to think I was that kind of person. So you let them believe you owned a house you did not own," I said. He did not answer that. "And when you posted that caption, you were not just thanking them. You were finishing the story you had been building for them all along. The one where you built yourself from nothing and found a real family who believed in you." He shook his head slowly. "I did not mean it that way. Cecile," I leaned forward slightly, "you were wearing the tie I gave you the morning you graduated. I spotted it before I recognized your face in that photo. You had that tie on and I was not in the room. You made a choice and you made it on purpose. The silence after that was different from the others. It had no floor to it." Loretta picked up her checkbook and put it back in her bag without a word. She understood that the offer was finished. There was nothing left to buy or negotiate away. She looked at Nadine with an expression I had not seen on her face all morning. Not sympathy, something closer to cold disappointment. The kind that comes when someone has let you down in a way you will not forget. "Nadine," she said, "we will discuss the loan situation when we get home." Nadine looked at her mother and something passed between them that told me more about that household than anything else that had happened in this room. I stood up, I buttoned my jacket. I looked at Wendell and he gave me a small nod. Then I looked at Cecil one last time. He was not the man who had walked in here trying to find an angle. He was just my son sitting in a chair looking like he had finally run out of road. "I'm not here to destroy you," I said. I never was. "But I made a promise to your mother and I kept it. That house was not a gift. It was a trust. You broke it." He nodded. "Just once. Small." "Where do we go from here?" he said. "Not really a question. That is up to you," I said. It always was. I picked up my copy of the documents. I looked at Harriet's watch on my wrist for just a moment. Then I walked to the door, pulled it open, and stepped out into the hallway. Wendell followed and let the door close behind us. We walked toward the elevator without saying anything. About halfway down the hall, I heard Loretta's voice come through the wall, sharp and clipped, saying Nadine's name. Then I heard Nadine's voice rising. Then nothing I could make out clearly. Wendell pressed the elevator button. "That went about as expected," he said. "It did," I said. The doors opened. We stepped inside. The drive home was quiet. I took the long way back through South Philly without really planning to. I do not know why. I just ended up on Clement Street. The lot was already fenced off, orange construction fencing around the whole perimeter. I pulled over and sat with the engine running. The house was still standing, but you could see they had started clearing the back. The deck I built was already gone. The yard where Harriet had planted the apple tree was just dirt and debris. There was nothing left of it, not even a stump. I sat there for a few minutes. I did not feel the way I expected to feel. I thought I might feel something clean. Some kind of closure. Instead, I just felt the same thing I had been feeling for 4 years, which is that she should still be here and she is not. And there is no action I can take that changes that. I pulled away and drove home. The weeks that followed were ordinary. I went to Otis's coffee shop every morning. I read the paper. I handled some property business from my laptop. I heard things through people I know, the way you do when you have lived in one city long enough. Cecile and Nadine had moved into a rental apartment over in West Philly. Loretta had helped with the deposit, but put the lease in their names only. 6 months. I heard she made that very clear. Then, about 5 weeks after the meeting at Wendell's office, I got a call from Dennis, the developer who bought the Clement Street property. He mentioned he was expanding his operation and needed a reliable site supervisor for a new project coming up in the spring. Someone who knew Philadelphia construction, knew how to manage a crew, knew the work from the ground up. I thought about it for a day. Then I called an old colleague of mine named Frank Briggs, who ran a mid-sized contracting outfit over in Fishtown. I had known him for 25 years. I told him I knew a young guy who was starting over and needed real work. Not a favor, real work. The kind where you show up and either you can do it or you cannot. Frank Briggs said he would keep it in mind. I did not tell Cecil. That was not the point. The point was that I never stopped being his father, even when I stopped being his safety net. Those are two different things, and I think a lot of men my age forget that. We spent so long being the floor under our kids that we forgot the floor was supposed to be temporary. They were supposed to learn to stand on their own. That was always the whole point. Harriet understood that better than I did. She said it to me more than once. She said, "Leo, love is not the same as covering for someone. Love is wanting them to be capable." I thought I knew what she meant. I do not think I fully understood it until I was sitting in that conference room watching Cecil hear the truth about his own life out loud for the first time. 3 months after the meeting, I was at Otis's coffee shop on a Tuesday morning, my usual table by the window, cup of coffee, business section of the paper. The bell over the door chimed and I did not look up. A shadow fell across the table. I lowered the paper. Cecil was standing there. He looked thinner. The expensive look he had been carrying around for the past couple of years was gone. He was in a plain shirt and work pants, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like a man who had been sleeping badly and working hard, which I later found out was exactly right. Frank Briggs had called him 2 weeks prior. Cecil stood there with his hands at his sides. He did not know if he was allowed to sit down. "Can I sit?" he said. I nodded at the chair across from me. He sat. He did not say anything for a while. He looked at his hands on the table. Then he said, "I drove past Clement Street last week. It is just a lot now," I said. "I know." I stood there for a while. He paused. I kept thinking about the apple tree. "The one Mom planted." I did not say anything. "I should have gone back there more," he said. "When she was still alive, I should have gone back a lot more." "Yes," I said, "you should have." He nodded. He was not looking for me to soften that. He just sat with it. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said. "Not about the house. I mean, I'm sorry about that too. But I'm sorry about the caption. I'm sorry you found out the way you did. I'm sorry about all of it." I folded the paper, set it on the table. I finished the last of my coffee and stood up. "An apology is a start," I said. "Respect is something you build back, one day at a time. Same as anything else worth having." I put on my jacket. I looked at him one more time. "You know where I have coffee every morning?" I walked out into the Philadelphia morning. The air was cold and clear. I thought about Harriet. I thought about the apple tree. I thought about how some things you cannot save no matter how much you built them with your own hands. And how some things, if you give them enough time and enough honesty, you can still bring back from nothing. That is what I was counting on. That is what I'm still counting on. If you have ever been the one who built everything while someone else took the credit, you already know how this story feels. Most men I know have a version of it. They just do not always talk about it. Maybe it is time they did. Drop a comment below and tell me what you would have done. I read every one